X marks the spot. A weathered parchment map, edges burned and tea-stained, a skull and crossbones in the corner. A dotted line leading through palm trees and past a shipwreck to a red X on the beach of some forgotten Caribbean island. Pirates buried their treasure in secret locations, drew maps so they could find it again. And for 300 years, dreamers and fortune hunters have been digging holes in beaches from the Bahamas to Madagascar, searching for chests filled with Spanish doubloons. This is one of the most universally believed myths on Earth. Children know it, adults accept it. Hollywood has built entire franchises around it. But here is the truth that treasure hunters do not want you to know. Pirates almost never buried their treasure. In the entire recorded history of Caribbean piracy, from the golden age of buccaneers in the 1650s through the final hangings in the 1720s, there is exactly one confirmed case of a pirate burying treasure. 1. Not dozens, not hundreds. One single documented instance in over 70 years of piracy across thousands of ships and tens of thousands of pirates. So where did this idea come from? Why does every child on Earth believe pirates buried their gold? And who was the one pirate foolish enough to actually do it? The answer involves a desperate captain, a failed bargaining chip, a public execution that horrified London, and a Scottish novelist who changed history with a single book. To understand why pirates did not bury their treasure, you first have to understand what pirates actually did with money when they got it. They spent it, immediately, recklessly, completely. When a pirate crew captured a merchant vessel, the plunder was not locked away in some captain's vault. It was divided on the spot, right there on the deck, according to the ship's articles. These articles were the pirate code, and every man signed them before joining the crew. They spelled out exactly who got what. The captain typically received 2 shares, the quartermaster, 1.5. Skilled positions like the master gunner or the carpenter received 1.25 shares. Every common sailor received 1 full share. Even the cabin boy got a half share. This division happened immediately. No waiting, no investing, no saving for retirement. Cash in hand, that very day. And then what? Port Royal, Jamaica, Tortuga, Nassau in the Bahamas, Madagascar, on the Indian Ocean, trade routes. These were the pirate havens, and they existed for one purpose: separating pirates from their money as quickly as possible. Brothels, taverns, gambling dens, merchants selling overpriced supplies. The economy of these ports depended entirely on pirates, arriving flush with Spanish silver and leaving with empty pockets. Captain Charles Johnson published his famous book, A General History of the Pirates, in 1724. He was writing about men who were still alive, still raiding, still spending, and he described their habits with a phrase that tells you everything. Pirates, he wrote, spent their money with great liberality, gaming, and all manner of debauchery. Great liberality, that is an 18th century way of saying they threw money around like it was worthless. The merchants of Port Royal knew exactly how to extract every last coin from a pirate's pocket. They charged 10 times the normal price for everything. Rum that cost pennies in Kingston sold for pieces of 8 in the pirate taverns. Women, gambling, and drink consumed fortunes in single evenings. A Spanish treasure fleet could carry millions in silver and gold across the Atlantic. A pirate crew might capture a fraction of that wealth in a lucky raid, and within weeks, every coin would be gone. Not buried. Not saved, spent. Consider Edward Teach, Blackbeard, the most famous pirate who ever lived. In 1718, his crew allegedly spent 1,000 pieces of 8 in a single night in Bath, North Carolina. One night. That would be roughly $20,000 today. Gone by sunrise. Spent on rum and women and cards. Captain Bartholomew Roberts, known as Black Bart, was the most successful pirate of the Golden Age. He captured over 400 ships. His crew burned through their shares so fast that they had to go raiding again within weeks of taking a major prize. There was no saving, there was no burying, there was only spending. Why would a pirate bury treasure? Think about the life. No bank accounts, no property deeds, no investments. A pirate could be killed in battle, hanged by the authorities, or betrayed by his own crew at any moment. The average career of a Golden Age pirate lasted about 2 years before death or capture ended it. Most pirates died young and died violently. Out of the thousands who sailed under the Black Flag during the Golden Age, only a handful escaped to live quiet lives on shore. The rest were shot, drowned, hanged, or killed by disease. Yellow fever alone claimed more pirate lives than the Royal Navy ever did. If you had 2 years to live and a chest full of Spanish gold, would you bury it on some island and draw a map, or would you spend it? Pirates spent it. They had no retirement plan because they did not expect to retire. They had no estates to pass down because they had no families waiting for them. Most were sailors who had turned to piracy because legitimate merchant voyages paid starvation wages while captains grew rich. The mathematics of merchant sailing explained everything. A common sailor on a legal trading vessel might earn £1 per month. A merchant captain could earn 20 or 30 times that amount. Pirates saw this inequality every day, and when they turned outlaw, they adopted a different system. Equal shares for all, divided immediately, spent immediately. For these men, money was not something to save, it was something to enjoy while you still could. But there is exactly one exception to this rule. One pirate who actually buried treasure. One confirmed, documented, historically verified case. And ironically, his story is exactly why no other pirate would have been foolish enough to try it. His name was William Kidd, Captain William Kidd. In 1695, Kidd was a respectable Scottish sea captain living in New York City. He owned property on Wall Street. He was married to a wealthy widow named Sarah Bradley Cox Ort. He attended Trinity Church. He had helped defend New York against French attacks. He was, by all accounts, a legitimate businessman with a solid reputation. Kidd had sailed the Caribbean for years. He knew the waters. He knew the dangers. He knew how pirates operated because he had fought them. The English Admiralty considered him a reliable man. Then he made a catastrophic decision. A consortium of powerful English lords, including the Earl of Bellomont, offered Kidd a privateering commission. He would sail to the Indian Ocean and hunt pirates. Whatever pirate ships and goods he captured would be split between himself and his wealthy backers. It seemed like a legitimate opportunity. Kidd fitted out a ship called the Adventure Galley with 34 guns and a crew of around 150 men. He sailed from New York in September 1696. And then everything went wrong. The voyage was cursed from the start. Kidd could not find pirates to capture. His crew grew restless and angry. They wanted plunder, and he was not delivering. Desertion became a constant problem. Disease thinned the ranks. The Adventure Galley began leaking badly. Under pressure from his crew, Kidd made a decision that would destroy him. He began attacking merchant ships, ships that were not pirates, ships that were protected by the flags of nations allied with England. In January 1698, Kidd captured the Quetta Merchant, an Armenian vessel carrying goods worth approximately £400,000. This was his biggest prize. It was also his death warrant. The owners of that cargo had powerful friends. Word reached London. Captain William Kidd, the pirate hunter, had become a pirate himself. Kidd knew he was in trouble. He sailed for the Caribbean, trying to figure out how to escape the noose that was tightening around him. He learned that he had been declared a pirate by the Crown. His former backers, the wealthy lords who had financed his voyage, were distancing themselves as fast as they could. Kidd came up with a desperate plan. He would bury some of his treasure as an insurance policy. If he could negotiate with the authorities, he could offer them the location of the buried goods in exchange for a pardon. In June 1699, Kidd landed at Gardiner's Island, a small island at the tip of Long Island, New York. The island was owned by John Gardiner, who would later testify about exactly what happened. Kidd buried gold, silver, jewels, and expensive silks, multiple chests. The total value was approximately £14,000 sterling, which would be roughly $2.5 million today. He then sailed to Boston to surrender himself to the Earl of Bellomont, confident that his buried treasure would buy his freedom. It did not. Bellomont was terrified of being associated with Kidd. The political situation in London was too dangerous. Rather than negotiate, Bellomont had Kidd arrested immediately. He sent word to Gardiner's Island, and authorities recovered every chest that Kidd had buried. Every single one. There was no secret location, no mysterious map. John Gardner had watched Kidd bury the treasure. He told the authorities exactly where it was. The entire insurance policy was worthless. Kidd was shipped to London in chains. His trial became a spectacle. He was charged with piracy and with the murder of a crew member named William Moore, whom Kidd had struck with a wooden bucket during an argument. On the 23rd of May 1701, William Kidd was hanged at Execution Dock in Wapping on the banks of the River Thames. The first rope broke. Kidd fell into the mud. He was hauled up and hanged again, this time successfully. But that was not the end. The authorities wanted to make an example of Captain Kidd. They placed his body in an iron cage called a gibbet and hung it at Tilbury Point, where every ship entering or leaving the Thames would see it. William Kidd's corpse rotted in that cage for 3 years. 3 years of watching, of warning every sailor what happened to pirates. So yes, one pirate buried treasure, and the result was complete disaster. His treasure was found immediately. His plan failed utterly. He died one of the most humiliating public deaths in English maritime history. No other pirate would have looked at William Kidd's fate and thought, yes, burying treasure seems like a good idea. But here is where the story takes its strangest turn, because William Kidd's failure eventually made him the most famous treasure-burying pirate in history. The credit goes to a Scottish novelist named Robert Louis Stevenson. In 1883, Stevenson published a book called Treasure Island. It featured a treasure map with X marks the spot, a buried chest of pirate gold, a one-legged sea cook named Long John Silver, and a villain named Captain Flint whose treasure was the prize everyone sought. Stevenson was inspired by the story of Captain Kidd, not by the reality of Kidd's pathetic failure, but by the romantic notion of buried pirate gold waiting to be discovered. Before Treasure Island, nobody associated pirates with buried treasure maps. The idea simply did not exist in popular culture. After Treasure Island, the concept became inseparable from piracy itself. One novel. That is all it took. One fictional story, inspired by one failed pirate, created a myth that has persisted for 140 years. Modern treasure hunters have spent millions of dollars searching for buried pirate gold that does not exist. They dig on Caribbean beaches. They explore caves in Madagascar. They use metal detectors and ground-penetrating radar. They find nothing, because there is nothing to find. The real pirate treasure is not buried, it is underwater. In 1984, an underwater explorer named Barry Clifford discovered the Whydah off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The Whydah was a slave ship captured by the pirate Samuel Bellamy in 1717. It sank in a storm just 2 months after Bellamy took it. The wreck contained coins, jewelry, weapons, and artifacts worth approximately $400 million. It was the first authenticated pirate shipwreck ever discovered. But notice the difference. Clifford did not find buried treasure. He found a sunken ship. The gold was not hidden on purpose. It went down with the vessel when the storm took it. This is where the real pirate treasure lies, at the bottom of the ocean, on reefs where ships struck rocks, in harbors where vessels rotted and sank, not in holes on beaches. And then there is the greatest unsolved mystery in pirate history, the fortune of Henry Every. In 1695, the same year William Kidd received his privateering commission, Henry Every pulled off the most profitable pirate raid in history. He captured the Mughal ship Ganjai Sawai in the Indian Ocean. The cargo was worth approximately $200 million in modern value. Gold, silver, jewels beyond imagination. The attack was so successful that it nearly caused a war between England and the Mughal Empire. The great Mughal himself, Emperor Aurangzeb, threatened to expel the English East India Company from India and seize all English assets in his realm. The English government had to pay massive reparations. They issued one of the first worldwide manhunts in history, offering substantial rewards for Every and his crew. Every divided the loot among his crew. Each common sailor received approximately £1,000, enough to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. Every himself took a captain's share, worth far more. And then Henry Every vanished completely. He changed his name, probably multiple times. He scattered his crew across the Caribbean and the American colonies. He slipped ashore somewhere in the English-speaking world and disappeared so thoroughly that no contemporary record captures his death or final years. No one knows where he went, how he died, or what happened to his share of the greatest pirate treasure ever stolen. In 2014, an archaeologist named Jim Bailey found a 17th-century Arabian coin in a Connecticut field. Analysis suggested it came from the same region as the Ganges Sawai cargo. Could it be evidence of Henry Every's crew settling in New England? The search continues, but notice again the difference. If Every's treasure still exists, it is not buried in a chest on some island. It was spent, traded, lost in card games, scattered across colonial America in small amounts over decades. That is how pirate treasure actually disappeared, one piece of 8 at a time, in taverns and brothels and markets, until nothing remained. The myth of buried pirate treasure persists because we want it to be true. We want to believe that somewhere out there, a chest of gold waits beneath the sand, marked by a faded X on a crumbling map. But the truth is both simpler and sadder. Pirates were desperate men living desperate lives. They did not plan for the future because they did not believe they had one. When they captured treasure, they spent it as fast as they could, enjoying what little time they had left. Only one pirate was foolish enough to bury his gold, and he did it as a desperate gamble, not a long-term plan. His treasure was found immediately. He died in public humiliation. His corpse rotted in an iron cage for 3 years. And yet, somehow, his failure became the foundation of a myth that fooled the world. William Kidd buried treasure once, and that single act, twisted through fiction and fantasy, convinced generations that all pirates buried their gold. The real pirate treasure lies at the bottom of the sea, in shipwrecks, in harbors, in coral reefs where the ocean claimed what pirates could not keep. Not underground. Never underground. X marks the spot exists only in stories. The pirates themselves knew better. They spent every coin while they still had breath to spend it.